Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the course on comprehensive view of speech processing. Today's lecture is number 34 in series, and today we are going to discuss about the hidden Markov models. So, in the last lecture we just introduced the hidden Markov models, and today we are continuing that. And here as we have seen, in the last class we are discussing about we are just introducing a hidden Markov model with this example. Here as you have seen that we can see that the hidden Markov model where there is something hidden, that means here in this context the state sequence is hidden or the states are hidden, symbols are observable, or you can say that in the context of speech the feature vectors are observable or the spectral vectors are observable from the acoustic signal whichever we had drawn. And from that we will try to see that what is the sequence of vocal tract shapes that are responsible for generating those spectral vectors and all. And here the vocal tract shapes can be viewed as the states, and the sequence of those states can be are responsible for the given sequence of spectral vectors for a given sound unit and all, right. And here one thing that can be observed here in the previous to this topic we discussed about the probability density estimation for performing a classification task. So, for that what we have done, so we are estimating the posterior probabilities with respect to each of the class, and based on that we are deciding which class the test sample belongs to. And here when you are estimating that posterior probability, we are taking a set of feature vectors, and we will see that all these feature vectors, what is the probability of all those feature vectors from a given class, and with that we are estimating a class conditional density, and using that we are hypothesizing the class label for the given test sample, and where we are not bothered about like the sequential characteristics of those feature vectors. We are not bothered and we are not considered that at all. We are assuming that all the feature vectors are independent, that is fine, but the sequential knowledge or the sequence of feature vectors or that aspect we have not considered at all. Whereas here we are trying to do that. In case of hidden Markov model, we can see that we considered we are observing the sequence of feature vectors, and we will try to see that what is the probability of this sequence of feature vectors from a given model. It is not just the feature vectors, it is the sequence of feature vectors also. So, therefore, in this model, in the hidden Markov model, we will try to observe the along with the probability of feature vectors from a given model. Along with that, we also trying to consciously looking at the sequence of feature vectors realizing from a particular class, right. So, it means that there is some along with the probability density estimation or the distribution characteristics of feature vectors, along with that we are also trying to looking at the underlying sequence of those feature vectors is also we are considering when you are estimating the posterior probability. That we are performing using hidden Markov model. We will see that how do we do that. So, here this we have discussed in the last class, the hidden Markov model with an example of n boxes where each box contains the colored balls, and the observed sequence is nothing but the colors, the sequence of colors, and from that we had to predict or we had to see that how many states were there and what is the sequence of states that are that provides the given sequence of balls. So, these things we need to figure it out. We will see how do we do that. And for performing that, here we need to for developing a model using the hidden Markov models. So, the following elements are basically required for defining the HMM or for you can say for developing the HMMs and using the HMMs for later on for various tasks also. The first thing is that the number of states. That means from the given observation sequence we need to figure it out for a given model how many states are there, like how many states are there. Here in the previous example, the states are nothing but number of states are nothing but number of boxes. Whereas in case of speech signal realization, the number of states are nothing but number of distinct vocal tract shapes. Number of distinct vocal tract shapes, that gives you the number of states. Then afterwards, the number of states is one of them, and the number of distinct symbols in a state. Number of distinct symbols in a state. Number of distinct symbols in a state, right. So, in the case of previous examples, number of distinct states are nothing but, right, number of distinct symbols are nothing but number of unique colors. Suppose if you consider 4 colors, the colors are happens to be blue, green, yellow and orange, right. So, that will be that will 4 is the number of distinct symbols, right. So, therefore, here in the case of, for example, from a speech signal, if you extract the feature vectors, they are continuous in nature, and afterwards by using vector quantization, we will convert them into discrete. So, in that case, if you use a vector quantization, then depending upon the size of a vector quantization or code book size, here the number of symbols that define. Suppose if the code book size equals to 1024, and here the number of distinct symbols are capital M equals to 1024, or otherwise if the code book size equals to 128, then M equals to 128. That means the number of distinct symbols is nothing but from a given state. So, that way this is also required, number of states and number of distinct symbols per state, right. And this can be viewed as like, for example, set V, where consists of distinct symbols like V1, V2 up to Vm. And then state transition probability, right. So, that is we know from a discrete Markov process, we aware of it, is here also similar to that. A is nothing but state transition probability matrix, because if the states are n, the number of states are n here, right. So, the possible size of state transition matrix will be n cross n, Aij, because there are n states are there. So, like the Aij becomes, the I can be like any one of the n states. Similarly, j can be any one of the n states. So, therefore, Aij, the matrix or the values corresponds to state transition probability will be n cross n, like where n is nothing but number of states. So, this is the state transition probability. We define that as we already seen, Aij is nothing but state transition probability from I to j, nothing but probability of qt plus 1 equals to j given qt equals to I. Here the t and t plus 1, they are the references. Here the t indicates that the previous state, t plus 1 indicates the current state, or otherwise suppose if you consider t is the current state, then the previous state becomes t minus 1, right. The previous time instance becomes t minus 1. So, qt plus 1, qt are nothing but the states at time t and t plus 1. The states are at I and j. I is in the previous state, j is in the current state, and here I and j will be here the I and j will be like they are the states. So, therefore, they are within 1 to n, they will be starts from either 1 or 1 within 1 to n. So, then come to the observation symbol probability, right. So, observation symbol probability can be defined as, it is again a matrix B, because there are multiple symbols and there are multiple states also there. There are multiple symbols and multiple states, right. There are n states and then the number of symbols will be capital M. So, therefore, here the observation symbol probability matrix or observation symbol probability will be like from each state the number of symbols that are possible, like there are n states are there. So, therefore, here the observation symbol probability matrix can be represented as Bjk. It is nothing but observation symbol probability. It means that the system is currently in state j. The system is currently in state j. At the state j, the symbol probability will be k. That means, it is now we are shown the symbol will be k. Like now, it is nothing but, suppose for example, if we shown the color red and now we are in the state for example, 7th bucket or 7th box, that means you picked up a ball from 7th box and then showing it is a red. So, therefore, the observation symbol probability can be written as here Bj of k, where j indicates the box number in the previous example and k indicate the color of a ball, the Vk, right. So, therefore, Bj of k can be written as probability of the observation symbol, the OT is nothing but observation symbol at time t equals to Vk, given that or at that point the system is in state J. Here you can say that here subscript t indicates that the time instant, right. So, OT is nothing but it is like the observation symbol at time t. The observation symbol at time t equals to Vk is nothing but this is the symbol. Let us in case of previous example, it is a color, whereas in case of speech example, this is the outcome of a vector quantization code book, one of the code vector, right. And here Qt equals to state, Qt is the state, the Qt is the state means here in the case of the previous example, colored balls and all, this Qt is nothing but indicate the box number, whereas in the context of a speech is nothing but a specific vocal tract shape, So, that way here Bj of k is nothing but observable symbol probability, because we are observing a symbol from a particular state. So, we know that the number of states are n and the number of different unique symbols are m. So, therefore, the probability, the observation symbol probability will take the matrix, again a matrix, right. Its order equals to m cross n, In each state it can take one of the symbols. The symbols will be, there are m distinct symbols are there, and likewise you have n states are there. So, therefore, the Bjk, the probability, that means state symbol probability matrix can be of order m cross n. Then the initial symbol probability, initial probability. That means here the initial probability means here initial state probability is represented by pi I. It is nothing but pi. It is nothing but pi I means the probability of first state, the probability of the initial state of the system is I. Initial state of the system pi I. It means that the system is in state I, where its initial state is that. It is nothing but probability of Q1. Q1 is nothing but the state at the first instance or at the initial instance Q1. That means the state when the observation symbol O1 is observed, it is one of the states like I. So, therefore, this pi I represents the initial state probability, and since there are I states, since there are n states are there. So, therefore, this pi is again the multidimensional one. It is like a matrix of order 1 cross n. That means there are n states are there, each state has some initial probability. So, therefore, this initial probability pi matrix pi is nothing but a matrix of 1 cross n, So, that way all these put together can be viewed as the basic symbols of HMM, with which we can able to represent the model, the speech model for a given using HMMs and all. Number of states, number of symbols, state transition matrix or state transition probability, and observation symbol probability and initial probabilities. So, with all these elements, 5 different elements, we can able to represent the overall the HMM model. The next one is that the basic problems in HMM, the 3 basic problems in HMM. It means that it is not the problems. If you solve these problems, then with which we can able to develop the HMM models, it is nothing but you can able to train the HMM models. Then afterwards the trained models can be used for recognition purpose or testing purpose, evaluation purpose can be done, and also while training we can able to optimize the models also. So, that so for that the 3 problems have been defined over here. So, these 3 problems are here, I am just stating over here. The first one is that how do we compute efficiently the P of O by lambda. So, here I am just giving you the lambda is nothing but a model, is nothing but model parameters. So, what are the model parameters? If you look at the previous slide, you can see that the model parameters are nothing but A comma B comma pi. It is nothing but state transition matrix, state transition probabilities, state symbol probabilities, and then the initial state probabilities. So, all those things put together can be viewed as a model. That means, HMM model can be represented by using those 3 parameters A comma B comma pi. So, these are the like a matrices, there are the multiple values. A contains like state transition probabilities, it means it is like n by n matrix, that means it contains n square values, whereas the symbol probability is nothing but state symbol probability consists of m cross n, that is m times n values. It means at every state we have m distinct symbols will be there. So, there is distinct probability. So, that way you have n states. So, therefore, m cross n values are exist in case of matrix B. And similarly, in the matrix pi we have the n values possible, because each state has some initial probability. So, therefore, all put together n values will be there. So, this A B pi can be viewed as the model. And now, here the first problem is that how do we can efficiently compute the for this given sequence of observations, observation vectors or observation symbols O1, O2, O3, OT from the given lambda, from the given model. That means, with respect to a particular model, how do we estimate the probability of this sequence of observations from this particular model. So, this is nothing but here how do we effectively or how do you efficiently compute. It means that a computationally efficient way how do you can compute, right, for a given lambda, for a given model and all. So, this is basically use this particular solving this problem will be useful for like testing, evaluation, recognition purpose or validation purpose. All our terms are like more or less same. That means, suppose the model is already available, suppose somehow you developed the model, like for example, in case of word recognition model, for a 10 word recognition model. So, for every model you build a HMM. It means that for every word 1 you have a HMM model, word 2 you have a HMM model. Likewise, you have 10 words, each word has a separate HMM model. Then afterwards, when you are giving suppose some unknown word we have considered, and you want to test that whether the unknown word is which among these 10 words, for example. So, from unknown word we extract the feature vectors, like so those sequence of feature vectors we need to estimate what is the probability of the sequence of feature vectors that are extracted from the unknown test word, right, from a given word, from the known model, from a word 1, what is the probability of that. Likewise, what is the probability from a word 2, what is the probability from word 10, and after estimation of that, then by comparing all those probabilities we can able to like take a decision that which word this particular set of sequence of feature vectors belongs to, right. So, that way this the solving the first problem will be useful for recognition purpose, recognition step. And here you can see we are bothering about sequence, not I am not saying the set of feature vectors, here there are sequence of feature vectors, right. So, this is the first problem, and the second problem is that given the sequence of feature vectors, like given the O1, O2, O3, OT and given the model, is there a way to compute what is the sequence of states that are responsible for generating this particular sequence of feature vectors. That means, from the given observation sequence and the model, is there a way to compute the optimal state sequence that is responsible for this particular observation sequence. That is the step 2. And for doing that, actually here that is what I mentioned here, best sequence that explains the observations in a better way, that means optimal sequence for a given observation sequence. So, this is the observation sequence and we know this is the model, and by knowing these two, can you estimate the what is the optimal state sequence? We will see that what is the purpose of that. And usually this particular problem, by solving this particular problem or analysis of this particular problem, that gives you that actually here like these are used for refining the model and all. That means, by analyzing this one can able to know that, so how many states are desirable. That means, here already the model is there, means already from the model we will come to know that how many states are there and how many symbols were there, and all of them we know that. So, by analyzing this step, we can come to know that whether the number of states that are considered in the model, whether they are sufficient or not. That means, whether the number of states are more or less. If it is less, then we can able to increase the number of states for a better modeling purpose or for a better training or for better development of a model, of better optimizing the model. And similarly, number of symbols also, if the number of symbols are sufficient or not. If they are less, then you can increase the number of models, number of symbols. How do you increase that? Increase the code book size. Instead of using a code book size of 128, you can use the code book size of 512 or 1024 likewise. So, that way here the problem 2 is nothing but estimating the state sequence or analyzing the state sequence from the given observation sequence of the model. So, with which we can able to analyze whether the number of states and number of symbols, whether they are sufficient or not, or that is there any modification or is required, right. So, that way you can able to estimate. That means, here basically the model is available, and from the model if you analyze the feature vectors with respect to this model, if you try to see that. So, suppose for example, for a particular case when you try to model with only 2 states for example. So, then when you try to analyze the feature vectors, right, and so the feature vectors are like most of the feature vectors, all the feature vectors, they are like, since there are only 2 states, they are like filled up with only 2 states, they are occupying those 2 states and all. But we know that but if you try to analyze the feature vectors of a particular state, if you try to analyze that, all the feature vectors are not similar. They are very distinct feature vectors, but they are forced to be formed from derived from a single state, because we model with only 2 states, but the feature vectors of from a particular word or from a particular speech signal, they are from a different states. They are not similar at all. Like for example, when you utter for example, so the vocal tract shape will take multiple shapes. First it will starts opening, and afterwards the opening state of that means the opening size will be increased, then it will be remains in somewhat maximum opening state, then afterwards it slightly and it moves towards closing and moves towards the next shape, further shape. So, these process can be modeled by using 3 states or 4 states for example, right. But if you try to model that only with the 2 states, then what happens at the first state, you can say the closing state also, and also the opening also, the moderate opening, all those feature vectors will be observed in the first state itself. And then the later state where you can see that the maximum opening and afterwards closing state, all of them can be observed in the second state, because the reason is that we force the model or we just represent the model with only 2 states. Then in each state when you try to observe the feature vectors, they are not similar, because some vector that corresponds to closing state, some vector that corresponds to closing to the opening, and some vector that corresponds to like again the maximum opening. So, all of them all fall under the single state. So, that way what I am saying is that in the problem 2, by analyzing the states, the feature vectors that are present in a state, so with that we can come to know that the feature vectors that are present in a state, they are not similar. So, therefore, it is better to split the state, or otherwise sometimes when you observe that if you model the feature vectors using a 5 state model, so in that some states where there is not much feature vectors are present and all. So, because the reason is that those 2 states, because even though we try to model with 5 states, but the feature vectors are mostly confined to only 2 states or 3 states. So, at that time we feel that the number of states that we considered is more. So, therefore, we will cut down, we will reduce the number of states. So, that way here we can using the problem 2, we can control or we can able to optimize the number of states, number of symbols by analyzing the states, the observation symbols against to the model and all. So, that way here the refinement of models can be done in the step 2 in this problem 2. Then coming to the problem 3 is nothing but training step. It means that how do we optimize this lambda, so that it provides to the maximizes the O of lambda, O given lambda. It means that here we need to find out or we need to modify these parameters or we need to optimize these parameters, so that for the feature sequence, for the feature vectors, the P of O by lambda will be maximized. This is nothing but training step. Suppose for example, during the training, so we extract lot of feature vectors from a word 1 from several samples, right, and then with all those samples together we will try to build a model, So, for that in the training step what we do while building the model, initially we do not know about what are the parameters. So, therefore, here also we will take the parameters, some random parameters, and then by knowing the feature vectors we will try to modify the parameters. So, likewise iteratively we can able to optimize the parameters of the model by observing the feature vectors and all. So, the third step is nothing but adjusting the lambda, so that it tries to maximize P of O by lambda. It is nothing but the training step. It is nothing but training step or the development step, developing a model and all. So, the goal of developing a model is nothing but, so the parameters or the model has to be maximized, that means the maximized for the given known feature vectors and all. So, nothing but P of O by lambda has to be maximized. In view of that, we have to adjust the parameters. So, these are the three problems, and here in these three problems if you look at, so the third problem is meant for training the model, and the first problem is meant for testing the model, and the second problem is meant for refining the model, or you can say the adjustment of the model or analyzing the model, right. So, these are the three problems. If you try to attempt, or if you try to solve these problems, then we can able to build the models, and as well we can able to perform the evaluation of the models for performing various tasks, and also we can able to get optimal models also. Yeah. So, here I just mentioned the same thing, illustration of use of HMM. So far I just mentioned that without giving the illustrative example, I just mentioned that HMMs, and I just defined HMM using the colored balls and boxes, and also with the vocal tract shapes and the spectral vectors. And after that, for representing that one, I just mentioned about the basic elements of HMM, right. And then after that, I just mentioned the three problems, the basic problems that are involved with the HMMs, and used by solving this problems, one can able to use the HMMs for developing the systems, developing the models, and use their models for testing. And also while building the models, how do we optimize the model? How do we optimize the model? How do you understand the model, whether the model, what are the parameters that are chosen, whether they are right or not. So, all those things you can able to analyze. So, here these are the three problems as I mentioned here from the speech. For example, here I just considered the example as a speech in a speech domain. So, from a speech signal, when you extract the feature vectors using some feature extraction technique, and afterward those features will be fed to the, by using vector quantization, you can get the discrete symbols or a finite number of feature vectors, right. They are known to be the coded spectral vectors, they are discrete in nature, and use those feature vectors, and with the problem 3 you can able to estimate the parameters. Okay, that is nothing but, this problem 3 is nothing but training step. So, from the feature vectors you can able to maximize, or you need to modify the parameters, or you need to optimize the parameters for maximizing the P of O by lambda. It is nothing but problem 3, it is nothing but parameter optimization or maximization of P of O by lambda has to be done, so that the lambda will be estimated. That is nothing but the parameters are estimated, it is nothing but the model was built, right. So, then how do you model, how do you build the model? Like for example, in case of isolated word recognition, for every word we will build a model, for every word we will build one HMM model, that way. Suppose for example, in case of speech recognition, if we want to perform, in case of speech recognition, our goal is, the fundamental goal is that from a given speech signal we need to derive the sequence of speech sounds, and we know that in any language the number of speech sounds will be around 40. So, in case of speech recognition task, we need to build 40 models, where each model or each HMM corresponds to one of the sound, So, that way the ASR you can able to perform by using hidden Markov models, where each sound unit will be modeled by using HMM. So, by knowing the model, by knowing the HMM, by knowing the characteristics of a sound unit, we can design the HMM, right. For example, in case of where to capture the sequence of feature vectors, where the vocal tract shape will be starting from close to open, then the opening of vocal tract will be increasing, and afterwards it reaches to the maximum opening, then afterwards it tries to close, right. So, it tries to close that depending upon the next unit and all, otherwise it remains the same after a certain time, right. So, for example, ka, where for example, the nature of ka production will be, the vocal tract is initially closed at a velum, and afterwards at some time the closing will takes place, and afterwards it suddenly opens, with that the air will be rushed. So, it means that here the ka can be modeled by using the closing state of a vocal tract, then afterwards the opening, and at the moment of opening you have a burst, air will be, a rush of air will be passing through that that is the turbulence will be generated, right. So, that way you can able to realize this using 3 states, that is a closed state, open state, then the burst of air or aspiration of air can be come out of that can be modeled that. So, that way that depending upon the sound unit you can able to model each sound unit with the appropriate number of states, right. So, that way the problem 3 will be used for building the model, and as I mentioned the problem 2 is meant for understanding the meaning of states. It is nothing but once the model 3 is built, for example, if you want to analyze that whether the model that was developed whether it is a proper or not. So, for that purpose we can use the problem 2. The problem 2 is nothing but take a model whatever built and then try to analyze the state probabilities or number of states and all. That means, take the feature vectors from the training data, try to see that how those feature vectors are distributed among the states, right. Suppose if the feature vector and then afterwards if you analyze the feature vectors that are present in a state, whether they are of similar nature or not. If they are not similar nature, then it means that we need to split the state. If they are for example, among the states, some states have very fewer number of feature vectors, at that time it means that we have taken excess number of states. So, we have to reduce the number of states. So, that way we can able to analyze the number of requirement of number of states and number of symbols and so on, right. So, that way the problem 2 can be used for the verification of where or by varying the number of states and symbols, and also the refinements to the model is nothing but that, and understanding the meaning of the states. And the problem 1 is nothing but once having the models are available and the refinement has been done, after that these models are meant for evaluation purpose. So, evaluation is nothing but already the models are available, then from an unknown test sample we will extract the sequence of feature vectors and then try to see that what is the probability of that particular sequence of feature vectors from the given model, given lambda, right. So, in that case how do we estimate the probability in an efficient way with respect to the time complexity. We will see that why that is considered over here and all. So, that way these 3 problems whatever I mentioned here can be used for taking care of building the models and evaluation purpose, and even the refinements to the model also can be done. The same example whatever I just mentioned, this I have been discussed with for the GMMs in very detailed way. The same explanation also holds good for HMMs also. So, here the only difference is that here each word model is built with the HMM, whereas earlier each word model is built with a GMM, where we have multiple components are there. Here instead here we have used the multiple states. We have multiple states where each state can be realized by using again a Gaussian mixture model or so, that can be done, right. So, here we have a states and the state sequence, all these things are matters over here in the context of HMM, whereas in case of GMM, here each of these model is realized by using GMM. It is nothing but a mixture model, it is nothing but some set of components where each component is realized by Gaussian and all, and we do not bother about the sequence of Gaussians, or sequence information is not at all considered in case of GMMs, whereas in case of HMMs here the sequence information is also matter we considered. So, that way you can use this HMM here for building the individual model lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda n. So, these are corresponds to the models corresponds to each of the word. This is a word 1 model, word 2 model and so on, and then the features are extracted and afterward these features are fed to each of these models, and each model will provide you the probability of the sequence of feature vectors from that particular model, P of O by lambda 1, P by O by lambda 2, P of O by lambda n. Out of these things, select the maximum of that one and then gives you the proper label to that particular sequence of feature vectors. Yeah. Now we will see that after knowing about the HMM, like the basic elements and the problems that are involved in that, and now we will try to see that how do we solve the problems. So, first we will start with the solution to the problem 1. It is nothing but computing P of O by lambda, efficient way of computing P of O by lambda, right. That means assuming that the lambda is available, that means the model is already available, right. So, we need to estimate that what is the probability of this observation sequence from that particular model, right. Okay. So, here consider that observation sequence is given by O1, O2, O capital T. That means there are capital T symbols, capital T feature vectors, for example, and a model is given as A B pi, right. A is nothing but state transition matrix, symbol matrix and initial state matrix. And here the possible state sequence will be, that means here we have like total T, the sequence length is T, capital T, the sequence length is capital T, and the observations are O1, O2, O capital T. And from this, how many possible state sequences can be obtained? How many possible state sequences can be realized or possible for the given observation sequence? Here the observation sequence length is capital T, that means 1, 2, 3 up to capital T. So, this is the sequence of observation symbols, or you can say that sequence of feature vectors. So, for this sequence of feature vectors, what are the number of possible state sequences? What are the possible number of state sequences? So, this is simple, because each observation symbol can be derived, can be generated from any of the states, can be any of the possible states, right. So, therefore, O1 can be obtained from any of the states, n states. Similarly, O2 can be obtained from any of the n states. So, likewise, if you analyze these observation sequence, that can be derived from, that can be observed from any one of the n power t sequences, n power t sequences. How do you get this one? Because each of these observation symbol can be obtained from any one of the n states. Likewise, there are t observation symbols were there. So, therefore, these particular sequence can be observed or can be generated from the any one of these possible state sequences. So, therefore, total possible state sequences will be n to the power t, capital T. N is nothing but number of states, and capital T is nothing but number of observation feature vectors, or the sequence length, you can say that. So, the n power t possible state sequences, n power t possible state sequences. So, P of O by lambda is nothing but probability of observation sequence from the given model can be computed as, if you can able to compute, because there are total possible n power t state sequences are there. So, if you can able to estimate the probability of observation from each of the state sequence, and then if you try to sum up all of them, that gives you the overall probability of O by lambda, right. The probability of O by lambda is nothing but probability of observation sequence from the given model, right. So, this observation sequence, their length is t. So, therefore, there are total possible state sequences are n power t. So, what we can do is that the probability of O by lambda observation sequence from the given model can be computed as the summation of probability of observation from each sequence, right. If you compute and then if you sum up all the probabilities from each of the sequences, that is nothing but P of O by lambda. So, it is nothing but the summation with respect to the state sequences q1, q2, qt of probability of joint probability of O for a given specific sequence for the lambda for a given model. So, this joint probability we can write it as this way, like a conditional probabilities and all, by using the probabilistic law, right. Probability of O by O given q and into probability of q, that means probability of observation sequence for the given state sequence into the probability of state sequence. And now we can able to write this as probability of observation sequence given the state sequence, because there are t observations were there, So, therefore, we can write the probability of observation sequence from the given state sequence can be written as, assuming that all the symbols are drawn in independent way. So, therefore, probability of O given q can be written as pi of, that is nothing but individual probability of O given state, right, and they are independent. So, therefore, the product of them, product of each of these conditional probabilities, probability of O given qt, probability of O given qt. So, what is that probability of O given qt? It is meaning what is the probability of O means nothing observation symbol at a given state, This is nothing but symbol probability, right. This is what we have defined, probability of observation sequence at a given state is nothing but observation symbol at a given state is nothing but symbol probability. So, the product of these t symbol probabilities can be written as, like at t equals to 1, it is in state q1, it is nothing but q1 means that can be any one of the n states, the probability of b q1 o1. B Q2 O2. So, these are the symbol probabilities. These are the symbol probabilities at a respective states, Q1, Q2, Q3, Qt and all, because we are analyzing with respect to a particular state sequence. So, it is in a Q1, what is the probability that the O1 will be there, and what is the probability of second observation symbol, what is the probability of the tth observation symbol. So, that way the probability of O given Q can be computed like this. This is nothing but product of the symbol probabilities. And the same way, what is the probability of the state sequence? The probability of state sequence, that is nothing but Q. We know that the state sequence is Q1, Q2, Q3, Qt. So, therefore, the probability will be, the Q1 will be the first probability. So, therefore, initial probability is nothing but pi of Q1, and moving from Q1 to Q2 is the next state. So, therefore, from moving from Q1 to Q2, it requires a state transition probability, that is A Q1 Q2, A Q1 Q2, that is a state transition probability from moving from Q1 to Q2. Then afterward the next state will be Q3 and the next state will be Q4. Likewise, to get those probabilities, we need to have like the state for the given state sequence, the probability of the particular state sequence will be, it starts from initial probability and then moving to second state, this is the probability, and from this state moving to third state, this is the probability. Likewise, moving to the Qt state, the probability is this one. So, therefore, probability of Q for the given model will is nothing but this one, and we know that the joint probability of P O comma state, that probability of observation sequence from given state sequence is nothing but product of these two, and we computed this one. This is the probability of O given Q is nothing but the symbol probabilities, the product of symbol probabilities, and probability of Q is nothing but the probability of the state transition probabilities. So, if you multiply these two, it is nothing but this one. So, this is nothing but pi of Q1 is the initial state. At the initial state, the symbol probability is this one, and then you are going to second state, and for moving to the second state, this is the probability from a first state, and at the second state, this is the symbol probability, and then again going to the third state. So, likewise, if you keep on computing, you can reach to the final state. And now, if you look at here, this is for one state sequence, for a given state sequence. So, this is the probability, this is the probability of observation from one particular sequence. So, here this one for computation of this involves 2t minus 1 multiplications, right. If you try to see that, the number of multiplications that are involved will be 2t, t is the length of a sequence. So, 2t minus 1 multiplications are required for estimation of this one. So, now if you want to compute P of O by lambda, and here this is for one state sequence. How many state sequences are there? There are total n power t state sequences, n power t, it is not n, this is n power t, it is not subscript, it is a superscript. So, here Q1, Q2, there are like n power t sequences are there. For every sequence we have this many computations are there. So, the total number of computations that are involved will be 2t times like n power t multiplication, 2t minus 1 we are just, so the number of multiplications that are for the required that need to be computed will be 2t into n power t multiplications, and number of additions will be n power t minus 1, because there are n power t sequences are there, and this is nothing but summation over all sequences of these probabilities. So, therefore, n power t approximately additions and n power t into 2t multiplications are there. And now, if you try to see that just with a numerical example, for example, let us given a problem where if you extract the feature vectors from a word, suppose based on the length of the word, the number of feature vectors that are derived will be 100. The number of feature vectors that are derived will be 100. So, there are 100 feature vectors, sequence of feature vectors from a given word, and we need to find out which word this feature vector, these 100 feature vectors belongs to. So, here t equals to 100, and suppose for example, each word we model with a 5-state model, with a 5-state HMM model. So, that means n equals to 5. So, in that case, for computing or for estimating P of O by lambda from a single model, the number of computations that are required will be, you can see that 2t into n power t, right, 2t into n power t, 2 t is nothing but 100, n is 5, t is again 100, that means 5 to the power of 100. So, if you try to like approximate these in terms of 10th exponential, this is approximately equals to close to about 10 power 72, 10 power 72. So, just imagine that for estimating the probability of the sequence of 100 feature vectors from a given model, the number of computations that need to be performed will be 10 power 72. It is a very huge, 10 power 72 is very large, very large, right. So, it is simply not possible by using this way of estimation. This is not to be a direct way of estimating the P of O by lambda, like. So, just by considering all sequences and then estimating the probability for each sequence and then using this way, the number of computations that are involved will be 10 power 72. It is very huge number of computations. So, practically it is not possible. By using this method, we cannot use it for recognizing the recognition purpose or estimating or solving the problem 1. So, therefore, we use some other approach. So, for effectively solving the problem 1 using a direct method, the number of computations that are required will be very huge. So, therefore, we are using another method known to be forward procedure, with which the number of computations will be drastically reduced. We will see that how this method works. And here for solving this method, we are considering the variable named known to be alpha t of I. Here the terminology is very important, how we are defining this alpha t of I. Alpha t of I is known to be forward variable, alpha t of I indicates the forward variable. So, what it indicates is that alpha t of I indicates that probability of partial observation sequence is not to be probability of partial observation sequence. And here alpha t, this do not confuse, this is please note that this is a small t, because as we are earlier in the previous slide we use capital T for the length of the sequence. So, this is a small t, do not use this, this is a small t. This is, you can see, probability of partial observation sequence. So, what it means is that alpha small t of I at that point at time t, the system is in state I. So, what it means is that alpha t of I is nothing but this is small t. Please note that this is a small t. It means that it is some time instant. So, it means that it is a partial observation sequence, probability of partial observation sequence. It means that what is the probability of the observation sequence observed partially, not completely. It means that observation sequence completely means it is capital T. We are observing up to some small t. What is the probability of O1, O2, O3, OT? At time t, the system is in state I. That means, what is the probability of observation sequence O1, O2, O3, OT, where at time t the system is in state I. So, what is the probability related to this? What is the probability related to this? It is nothing but it is a kind of, like, can say that a joint probability of O1, O2, O3, OT at time t the system is the QT comma QT, that QT means QT equals to I, that at time t the system is in state I. Right. This is known to be a partial probability of partial observation sequence, that is denoted by alpha t of I. And now, by using this forward procedure, forward variable, we can able to compute the P of O by lambda, because that is required for evaluation purpose. So, for that you can see after knowing the definition. So, please note the definition carefully. Alpha t of I, here this is small t and this is I, this I refers to the state at time t, and this t is nothing but at time t, right. This t varies from 1, 2, 3 up to capital T, right. And now, here we are observing up to some small t, right. At that time the system is in state I. So, what is the probability related to that point till that point, probability of observation sequence till that point, at that time the system is in state I. So, for solving this we will start with the initial step. So, initial step is nothing but alpha 1 of I, that means when you consider t equals to 1 at the first instance, at the first observation symbol alpha 1 of I. Alpha 1 of I means here is nothing but the partial observation sequence where we are observing at only the first instance, at the first time, at the first time instance, at the first observation vector. It is nothing but alpha 1 of I, it is nothing but the definition will be as per the definition probability of O1, and at the initial state a Q1 equals to I, a Q1 equals to I, that is nothing but alpha 1 of I. It is nothing but the probability of the observation symbol at the state I, at the state I. So, this can be derived as, this can be written as at a q1 equals to I is nothing but the system is in state I, it is nothing but pi I, because this is initial state. The system is at the initial state in the state I, the probability is pi I, and at this state the symbol probability will be is nothing but written as B I of O1, whatever the O1 is there, because whatever the O1 symbol is there, the probability can be written as B I of O1 is nothing but the probability of the first observation symbol from the state I, where I equals to 1 to n, where I can take any of them, any of the state 1 to n applicable. So, the initial alpha 1 of I can be written as pi I into B I of O1, right. This is nothing but initial state probability, and this at the initial state what is the symbol probability. And then at the induction it is nothing but the intermediate step, like after knowing the we are proving this by induction. In the induction step it is nothing but we are estimating at t plus 1, we are estimating this alpha observation partial observation probability of partial observation sequence at t plus 1, alpha t plus 1 of j. It is nothing but probability of the observation sequence O1, O2, O3, OT plus 1. At t plus 1 the system is in state j, system is at state j. So, this we can write it in terms of from its previous step as alpha t of I, because you can see we are here alpha t plus 1 of j, it is nothing but partial observation sequence till t plus 1, at t plus 1 the system is in j. So, prior to t plus 1 the system is in state t, the time instant is t, at time instant t the system may be in one of the states, maybe one of the n states, the system is at one of the n states. There is a chance that the system at time t plus 1 is in state j, and for this reaching to state j the previous instance the system may be in any one of the states, any one of the n states, right. So, that you can write it as alpha t of I. Alpha t of I is nothing but partial observation sequence till time t, till time t. So, the partial observation sequence till time t, it is in state I, that I can be any one of the states, any one of the n states, right. And from this state, and here our interest is that at t plus 1 the system should be in state j. So, from the t the system may be any one of the n states, and then from these n states the system may move to system j to the state j in the next instance, in the next instance. So, therefore, that you can able to write it as the probability of that can be written as it can be any one of the n states in the previous instance, and the system will be with this probability partial observation sequence till that point, and then this is the transition probability. So, by using this you can able to write alpha t plus 1 of j can be written as alpha t of I multiplied by a of I j, because this is the transition probability to reach to j, right, and this is that the state probability that I think partial being in state I. There are possibility of n states. So, therefore, we are considering all of them, we are summing up all of them and then multiplied with this, that gives you the alpha t plus 1 of j, alpha t plus 1 of j. So, by applying the same induction till to reach the end at the termination step, p of O by lambda is nothing but, because our last observation is nothing but capital T, our last observation is capital T, right. So, the same way if we move on to the last step capital T, then we will get alpha t of I, we can get alpha t of I, we can get the alpha t of I. That means, at time instant alpha t of I is nothing but the observation sequence, after observing the entire sequence at time t, the system being in state I, the system being in state I. It means that we are not bothered about like the previous observations and all. At time t the system should be in state I. That means, here it is nothing but alpha t of I is nothing but partial observation sequence, probability of observation sequence at the last instance the system is in state I, the system is in the state I, right. We can do it, because at the induction we can do it we can compute that at the intermediate step. Now, if you extend the same thing to the end at alpha t of I is nothing but partial observations, or you can say, you can't say it is partial, because by that time capital T we are reached to the end of the sequence. So, that means the probability of the observation sequence at time t being in state j, it is nothing being in state I, it is nothing but alpha t of I. So, that way at a time instant capital T, the system may be in any one of the n states. With certain probability, the system may be in ith state, and some other probability, the system may be in other states also. So, therefore, if you sum up all these probabilities, that gives you the P of O by lambda, that is the desired one, whatever we require. Whatever we require, that is we can able to achieve that, right. So, this way by using the forward variable, you can able to estimate P of O by lambda. Yeah. Now, we can see these the whatever we discussed here, that you can able to illustrate over here clearly. You can see here on x axis is the time instances, that is nothing but the observation sequence. Here at this point we observed the symbol 1, then the symbol 2, symbol 3 up to symbol t, or otherwise feature vector 1, feature vector 2. Likewise, we have observed the capital T feature vectors, and here these are the states, the y axis is just indicated by states, and here this observation vector can be derived from any one of the states, right, and similarly 2 can be observed from any one of the states, right. So, likewise here these are the states and these are the observation at different time instants and all. And now here alpha t of I is nothing but here, suppose at time instant t there are n states are there, alpha t of I is nothing but a particular state, suppose this is the ith state for example. What is the probability of the observation sequence O1, O2, O3, OT at time t? It should be here, it should be here. What is the probability of that? So, that way the alpha t of I is defined, and with that definition you can able to define alpha t plus 1 of j is nothing but alpha t plus 1 of j means what is the probability of observation sequence O1, O2, O3, OT plus 1 at t plus 1 the system is in state j. So, for that if you want to see from the previous way, from the previous time instant, at a previous time instant the probability of partial observation sequences being in the different states will be these ones, like alpha t of I, where I varies from 1 to n. And now from these states the system may reach to the system j with certain transition probabilities. So, that is what we have done. When you try to compute alpha t plus 1 of j means we have taken the summation of like all these alpha t of I, right, multiplied by these state transition probabilities, then we will get the probabilities that reaching to this one. At this state the symbol probability will be bj of OT plus 1, that is what we have seen in the if you look at the previous one, this is the one, that way you can compute. So, this way if you keep on computing this forward variable, like this forward this partial probabilities observation sequences at each state, at each time instant, if you compute for all t's and for all time instances and for all the states, if you do it, and when you reach to the capital T, when you reach to the termination, you can see that here you will get alpha capital T of n, alpha capital T of n minus 1, alpha capital T of 1. So, all these can get alpha capital T of all the states are available. If you sum up all these things, it is nothing but P of O by lambda. It means it takes care of all possibilities, like you can see that it takes care of, because whatever the state sequences and all probabilities will be added up to reach to the finally state n, and all the probabilities of all the sequences to reach to the n minus 1 you can be able to compute by computing alpha capital T of n minus 1, and likewise alpha capital T of n minus 2, likewise alpha capital T of 1, that gives you the all possible state sequences finally end up with 1. So, therefore, if we sum up all these things, that gives you the overall P of O by lambda, P of O by lambda. And now, if you try to analyze the number of computations over here, if you see here for a particular state, the number of computations that are involved will be how many? How many? Because there are n, you can see there are n multiplications are required. You can see from this previous for this particular state, if you want to compute the partial observation sequence at this particular state, right, for this particular time instant. So, the number of multiplications that are involved will be n, and likewise at this particular time the number of states are n, again n. So, therefore, at each time instant to compute the partial observation sequence alpha t of different states, the number of multiplications that are required will be n square for every time instant. And how many time instants are there? Total, we have total capital T time instants, total capital T feature vectors. So, therefore, the total number of multiplications or computations that are involved will be n square t. because n square for every time instant and there are total t time instances are there. So, it is nothing but n square t. So, when you try to analyze the previous example, numerical example, right. So, when n equals to 5 and t equals to 100, if you look at here, n square t means 5 square into 100, it is about 5000 computations, like 5 square, sorry, 2500, 2500, because n square into t, n is 5. So, n square gives you 25 and t is nothing but total 100 sequence length. So, it is about 2500 computations, whereas the earlier direct method, the number of computations that we observed is nothing but 10 power 73. See how much, what is the difference, it is a so big difference. So, therefore, using a forward approach by exploiting the lattice structure, you can able to achieve the computational efficiency with a very reasonable way you can able to compute. So, here we can, at this point we will stop the lecture and we will continue this in the next class. Thank you.